and if Dave shows, then Dave shows. So.
Okay.
Are you on, Sheila?
Yep, I am.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Good morning, everybody. We'll open it up for public comments. Are there any public comments? Third and final time, are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to line item 3, which is the election of officers. So for here, we've just always done it the same way we've always done it, for a motion and a second for any offices, and we should have a chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer.
And an alternate secretary.
And an alternate secretary, treasurer. Yep, so there should be 4 positions open. So open for nominations for chair.
Keep it the same.
I have a nomination for Josh Elsing again.
You're doing such a fine job, Josh. We keep,
I'll take that as a second from Bob.
yep.
So we had a motion for, by Lynn and a second by Bob for Josh Elsing to be chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next would be vice chair.
Are you vice chair, Lynn?
Sure.
Vice chair.
Yep.
You
I
currently
nominate
are?
Lynn.
Yeah.
I nominate
Your second, yep.
him as a vice chair again, moving
All
forward.
right, so we'll take a motion by Ross, a second by Bob to nominate Lynn Zabel as vice chair. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion, or motion approved, yeah. All right, next we need a secretary treasurer. This is, and then we'll need an alternate, so we have 2 positions left. Currently, it's Ross.
No.
Or no, actually, it's him, and you're
And
the,
James.
and James, okay, it was, oh, you're Whitewater, you're
Soil-
secretary for soil and water, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew you were on one of them.
And would have any wants, otherwise we could keep that the same as well, but
Run that for another year if you'd like. Anybody's, you okay with it?
Yep.
I just need a motion and a second.
move.
Second.
Bob.
Moved by Lynn, second by Ross to keep Bob as the secretary treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Then we need a alternative for secretary treasurer. James, are you interested, or Ross, or?
If the bank's okay with me.
Your signature is on your files.
I nominate James. I nominate James.
Okay, we got a motion by Ross, do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn. All right, motion by Ross, second by Lynn to have James as the alternate secretary treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Okay, on to approval of minutes, December 20th. I don't believe there was anything in there that needed to change that I saw. So, any discussion on that?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by James to approve the December 2024 meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion approves. All right, on to the new agenda. Is there, I didn't see any amendments to that, Sheila?
Well, the amendment was yesterday to add election of officers. I looked at it
Yeah,
yesterday.
in the red,
Yeah,
we took
yeah.
that, yeah.
Yep, so that was no other additions.
Okay. Any changes to the agenda you guys have?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Ross, second by Bob to approve the agenda. On to the consent items. Sheila?
Okay, there's just to give you a little bit of background on, we had our expenses from the December meeting that were paid. And then after the meeting, it was brought to my attention that I had a little bit of dyslexia. And I inverted numbers, and I was $900 short on the payment to Wabasha SWCE. So, and that had to be done before the grant.
Oh.
So Josh signed it, and I was the second signature, so we took care of that before the end of the year. So that's what that check number 3258. And then as was approved at the last meeting, I don't typically get the invoice for the 2025 premium for MCIT until later after our meeting, and it's due before the end of January. So that was paid, and that was actually a little bit less than our premium last year. I think it was like $1,550 last year. So it came at $1,475, so I did a automatic payment with the bank for that amount. And so the only 2 checks for this meeting would be For County of Winona, for the shared position for my time, $2,661.65, and then also some expenditures that came up from the last local advisory team meeting, and also I had to mail 1099, so that's the 1713. And so all totaled, including that $900 check in MCIT, $5,578. And we do have an
I was gonna say, but
anticipated deposit from the drinking water grant of almost 17,000.
okay, thank you. Any comments on the consent?
The only thing that's holding up that check is probably the reconciliation getting wrapped up. Okay.
That's part of it.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, that's what's hanging.
Okay.
Because that's, is that reimbursed money?
Yes.
I believe it
yeah.
is, isn't it?
Well,
Because we've paid
the
it out.
Bowser grants, they pay 50% upfront.
Yeah.
And then when that 50% is spent, then you get 40%.
And then
The
it's
last 10%
Yeah,
waits until everything is finalized, so
Yeah. we're on that.
yeah.
Yep.
And this one is taking a little bit longer because the grant requires what's called a reconciliation where a grants compliance person comes in, kind of does an audit. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really money for us because we've paid it out already,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Yeah, so it's going back into our account that we
Yep.
don't have to repay back out.
Correct.
Right, that's what's nice, this isn't exhausted funds, it's actually, it'll be an increase in what we have to go do more with.
Yeah,
That's what's neat
The
about
50
that.
and the 40 are kind of advance payments, but that last 10% is
Correct.
reimbursement.
Yep, exactly, so this will be money we get to have in the future for projects, because technically it's out of our bank account. Okay, cool, so any other discussion on that? All right, hearing none, we'll go into board reports.
You want to approve the consent items?
Oh, sorry, yep, I jumped over, I already had it checked, sorry.
So moved.
So moved. Motion by Bob, do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Lynn to approve the consent items as read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now on the board reports. Lynn, you want, or James, you want to get us started?
Not a whole lot, we just, got our new officers set up. Let's see, well, Cheryl's the chair. And I'm not too sure who else. Oh,
2 new board members,
Paul's the vice chair, and then the other 2 members are the treasurer. And, well, I guess that's it. Other than that, not a whole lot of action happening.
You have a new staff person on board. It's nice to see you and Lynn still talking to each other, but
Well, that's true. Yeah,
Jenna left
sorry.
Wabasha and went to work for
Yeah,
Olmsted.
okay, I didn't.
We have to bring that up far.
Almost says like this giant vacuum.
You gotta get past the pain, Lynn.
We wished we had your budget.
Yeah, and also a new USDA person, I believe, right?
Pardon me?
A new federal USDA staff member. I think there were two at the meeting.
Oh.
Anyway,
Well, we'll see if you have one next meeting, because I heard yesterday USDA NRCS has lost nearly 50 people in the last couple weeks in Minnesota. Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
I think that's it.
All right. Lynn?
Well, behind the scenes, we might have been waiting to see about hiring someone new for that position, depending on what's going on now with the funding and so forth. We gotta give it some second thought, otherwise we were pretty gung-ho on replacing them.
Well, on the flip side, there's some pretty qualified people that are probably looking for work right now.
So,
with the
that's a possibility,
with the firings with NRCS. Yep.
So anyway, Yeah, I went to the Winlac meeting, Bob too, and I read that whole packet of stuff that we got. And the only thing that really stuck out to me is, you know, they got Bowser, the structural practices must be designed to maintain the last 10 years and all that for management practices. But you know, that's a good thing, get good use out of the money spent, but then I never see anything about consequences necessarily printed there, so I just wonder what's the real thing that can be done or could be done. So that was just something that stuck out to me that
Do you want an answer to that?
if you don't,
Yes. It's it's a requirement that if an SWCD cost shares a structural practice and it's not maintained for the life of the practice, that the landowner is due up to 150% payment back to the SWCD.
okay, so that isn't in the.
It's, the board has a lot of discretion over 0 to 150%,
It's not,
depending on
there's
the
no mandated law on
circumstances.
that, I don't believe.
Yeah.
It's discretionary to that, because we've questioned that in some of the practices in the past, I think including pits. I think was one of them, I thought would come up one time, right? Or is it just
Like a manure?
like a manure pit, wasn't it?
Well, they probably have a lifespan of more like 25 years,
Yeah,
but
like what happens if, hey, they put all this money towards it and then they close down in 5
Yes.
years? You know, you're using taxpayer money to do
well,
it.
and
Yeah,
how do you,
a lot of these things.
how do you squeeze blood out of a stone, right?
Yeah, that's just it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything to go against the farmer.
Right.
But it was reconciliation to the taxpayer to say, hey, you spent all this money.
Yep.
It's usually a pretty well-known thing, and then they go broke, and then everybody runs around and says, well, we don't want to do that anymore, because the last one we funded,
Yep.
they went under, and, you know, yeah.
So the board, the SWCD board does have a lot of discretion, and they can have a really good discussion and, you know, what are the circumstances?
And that's what I always argued, is that, well, doing nothing does nothing.
Yeah.
And we have to just assume that they're going to do their best to stay in business, you know.
Well, that was good discussion. So, I think that's pretty much it. We have a new vice chair. That was the only thing we changed about our officers, so there's a potential now I can have it out. But that's all I have.
Okay.
You want to touch on your conversation and coffee and conversation?
Sorry.
You want to touch on the coffee and conversation?
Oh, I never went.
What's that?
Oh, I never went to the coffee and conversation.
No, but just highlight what you guys are doing with that,
Well,
staff.
they talked about grazing on this last one, but I didn't go because
What's tonight?
it was in the morning.
Tonight at 6:30 to 8.
Really?
At the Legion.
I thought it was at the Legion.
But no, once a month,
Oh, okay.
you know.
I have no idea.
You know
I
what
what
I
you're
do.
talking about.
What's that?
You know more than I do, because
Well,
I
then-
thought it was like yesterday.
The email
Or
just
this
came
morning.
yesterday or something. But no, I just highlight, you know,
Is this a Wabasha County thing?
Yeah.
SWCD is hosting a coffee and conversation,
Okay, I didn't
open to
think
the
about it.
public. and-
I think I'm clueless, because I've been spending all my time in my head in cattle waters.
All the blood's in your hand?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, I just,
I like soaking and sticking to the
Stick it,
door
yeah.
after we dump hot water to get it open.
I've been there, so I get it. Probably as much as you.
Well, I better be done. So-
Okay. Ross, tell us about kettle waters.
So that was coffee and conversation, you call it, or what do you call it?
Oh,
yes,
that's what they did call it.
yep, and that's what it is. They've had, once a month, it's at the SWCD office, it has been. Tonight it's in Plainview at the Legion, just trying to move it to different spots.
Kind of a good idea.
You know, I think it started out last summer, last fall. Talked about cover crops. You know, there's a topic, but I've not attended either, but I've been told it's kind of open conversation, whatever topic comes up can be discussed and just,
I went to the one, it was really good, but I don't know if I should go to the grazing one, because all I know is chasing cattle under the underpass, rubbing their bellies in the mud back in the sixties. And then we were done pasturing. So, nothing good to say about it.
And I guess I'm trying to learn more, so this is a SWCD effort, it's not a Wabasha County.
Correct, it's
effort.
through the SWCD. I just was trying to highlight, maybe Lynn would mention, you know, what SWCD is.
No,
Appreciate the help.
no, it's good, and I'm, you know,
Yep.
so final question would be compensation, or, you know, how, do you compensate your manager, or who's in attendance, your staff, your manager? Are
Normally,
they
it's-
volunteering?
Normally, it's been in the mornings, correct? Or, I mean,
I
during
think it's about
business
during
hours?
Business hours. so
Okay.
Normally.
Okay.
I don't know.
But like tonight, you said 6:30?
Not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I don't know how they're, you know, compensating these
Okay, just-
off-sites.
Okay, just curious.
It's a new person that,
Deanna.
yeah, Pomji or whatever, that kind of took the lead on it. Seems really interesting.
Well, good. Sounds like a good idea. Good for you. I guess all I have, the main thing I had, we had a gentleman come to our meeting. He was a finalist for the Winona County Feedlot Officer. His name was Brian Berthy.
Yeah,
Correct.
I didn't quite catch the last name, but I did hear that they are offering to him, so.
So,
And that
so
he has a start.
it's not official. He's not
Well,
officially hired. He's,
I did hear there's a start date in March 11th.
I can't confirm anything
Yeah.
because I wasn't at the last meeting, so.
so you think it's March 11th, and we both know his name is Brian.
Yes,
We got progress.
Team effort.
we can do this.
So I was very, the board was very impressed that he came to our meeting and sat in on it, and I want to say he has a GIS background, hydrogeology, Winona State University alumni, employed for a few years at St. Mary's University. Anything else on him, his
No, I
background?
think that sounds pretty good, but
So-
yeah.
So that-
Yeah, he had at Winona State, water resources management was his degree, which is the same that I did when I went to Winona State.
So does Winona County just have one feedlot officer? Or is this a
Yes,
She
second
one.
left, she got
Okay.
snagged by the MPCA, and
So
so
the last two have been snagged
snagged by,
by the MPCA, so
correct?
actually, no, three, all three.
Yeah.
Three in a
You're
row,
right.
three in a row have been
Right.
hired
Yep.
in the MPCA. So we need to figure out a way how to stop that, but neither here nor there. So the only thing I will, I had a feedlot producer communicate with me regarding this topic, and I thought, and I've been ruminating on his ideas and his concern. The person seems very energetic and qualified, and that's very positive. The concern is the person has zero interaction and experience with agriculture, with production agriculture, with farms. There is zero, none. So the producer is very concerned, hopefully everything's great and whatever, but isn't there a way, and the person shared this with me, the Lewiston Board of Education needed to hire a coach. This was 5 years ago, and they created kind of an advisory board because it was a very controversial thing and whatever. So they invited 2-3 parents to be on the board, or they asked for people to volunteer, and there was three people that could not vote but could at least give a voice to the decision of who is selected. So the understanding of this person who approached me is the people who made the decision are the current interim feedlot officer. His name is
Aaron
Doug.
Lover?
Doug,
No, Doug, no part.
no.
Or not
No,
no
Doug
part.
Cieslak.
C-Slack, there we go.
Yeah, he's
Not Doug
the,
Nopar.
he's the department chair, or head.
Right, so he
Yeah.
was one of them, and there was like 2 or 3 county people who made this decision, and maybe this is accurate, maybe it's not. So the point was, isn't there a way that the county, in a hiring decision that's gonna affect all of our producers, that we're losing 8 to 10% per year, that they could have a voice, and that they could have, they don't need a vote, but they need a voice. So that's the point of me bringing that up.
I know that when Carly was hired, she didn't have an ag background either, but she was a quick learn. I mean, she
But
learned,
Carly understood agriculture.
right.
And she came from agriculture, and she was married to agriculture.
And I will preface
After she
this,
came.
I will preface this, but I don't know if, maybe Brian does know about agriculture. The producer gave me the impression that Brian does not. Does anybody know Brian enough to say he knows anything about, maybe he was raised on a farm? I don't know. But the point is valid that
He's from the Twin
these
Cities.
people are, we're
Yeah.
kind of struggling out here, and it would be nice if we could have a voice.
I think one of the most, can I jump in here, Russ?
Yes, go ahead.
I think one of the biggest things that I see coming from ag, coming from the farm, growing up, and the disconnect I see all throughout agriculture, this can happen internally in co-ops and other agri-related businesses, is the disconnect between understanding the dynamics of a farm and looking at a farm holistically from outside. And until you, it's kind of like everything else. I can watch a bricklayer lay bricks, but until I go lay bricks and have been there, I don't understand it, right? So it changes the dynamics when you've been part of it to be able to relate. And I think that's what Ross is alluding to, is that it's so simple. If it's black and white, we're following a spreadsheet versus understanding the internals of the spreadsheet and the dynamics it takes to actually farm. So that's what scares me, and I can 100% appreciate what Ross is trying to say. And we'll make some phone calls.
Okay,
So-
go ahead, Dave.
If, I like to brainstorm. What if part of that person's onboarding is he gets invited to some farms to spend part of a day on a dairy farm working with a producer. Not looking at potential issues, but just learning.
More so.
That
What
was
it's like.
discussed at the SWCD meeting. He would, he
Following
received
Amanda,
invites, yeah.
you know,
Andy-
shadowing Amanda
More
for a
so
while.
a job shadowing a farm.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's a good suggestion. You're talking Amanda Gentry,
Yes,
Soil and Water
Yep.
Staff member, that she's currently actually trying to work with producers on developing manure management plans. But I mean, and not that part of it, but the site visit portion, you could take the familiar face, Amanda, and introduce
Amanda
the
has a
new.
really good reputation with
Yes.
producers.
And
So-
she's been there for 12 years or more than that.
Well,
closer to 10 maybe.
But-
see, I've been on this board for 8 years, going on 9 years. Did she come right about the time I
She
got
came
on?
here after I did, so.
After, yeah. It's really close to since
Yeah,
I've sat on all
it
those
is,
boards.
yeah.
So a
it's gotta be-
decade, and so
yeah.
she's known throughout the community, and she's, been a good voice and advocate for ag, so that would be a
Yeah.
good suggestion, Dave, I think.
I think so too.
I think as a minimal approach to that, yeah.
To Sheila's point, Andy Gronebush is our chair, and he made the open offer to Brian and said, I have a farm, me, Andy, I have a farm, Ross Graydon has a farm, Bill Rokamp used to have, we could give you some tours or whatnot, so he did extend the invitation, but I think maybe encouragement of making that happen would be positive.
Yeah.
One of the
I
things
agree.
I used to do when I worked for NRCS, if I had a trainee, I would ask one of the SWCD board members, can so-and-so update your conservation plan? So that was just a good training experience for them to work with one of the board members, look at their farm, and update their conservation plan. It's a low stress way. You have a kind of an advocate that you're working with, not a potential adversary. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know I found, it's not quite the same, but the field days that have been sponsored have been real informative for me as a non-farmer.
Yeah, that's always my worry, is you get people that, you can walk somebody through a factory and then you can run the factory. They're two different things, and until you understand what it's like to be on the running side, not just walking through it, and that's, so some of these positions that to me are, heavily guarded as, it's, I don't care what your degree on the wall says. Can you relate?
Yep.
You know, and I think in the agricultural world, that's even in our world, when we step onto farms or we're working with a lot of ag retailers, it's how do you relate to what they're going through to figure out how to solve a problem, rather than just pinpointing and saying, well, you're at fault for this, this, and that. So, yeah, I value that more so than the actual degrees, so.
And I'll just,
Thank you.
you're welcome, and I'll just say it one more time, we need to give Brian the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
And hopefully everything's, you know, gonna be extremely positive. But just the concern was raised, and so I'm sharing the concern, that's what we're doing here.
Thank you.
The other thing that we discussed at the meeting, I believe we're gonna, let's see, March 4th is a week from Tuesday. So we're gonna be seeing Dave in St. Paul a week from Tuesday, right? No? You won't be at the MAWSD thing in St. Paul?
Is this the legislative day?
Yes.
No, no.
Okay, so Andy
Governor
Bush and
Joe doesn't
myself are
want me to be
going.
talking to legislators.
Well, then I misunderstood Andy. He made it sound like there would be some Bowser representation at the gathering.
Oh, it's possible that, like, maybe our assistant director, Justin Hanson.
But you per se
or
will
our-
not be there.
We have a legislative liaison, I'm having a senior moment thinking of her name.
Well, regardless, it's.
Andrea Fish.
Okay, so it's the SWCD event, like the day at the Capitol or
The day at
whatever.
the- yeah,
So
when you go talk to
So
legislators.
the afternoon is like a social
Yep.
and
Yep.
kind of a, oh, hey, everybody, let's, you know, kind of get our ideas together. Are we all on the same page? And then day 2 is the visit, the
Visits.
one-on-one with the
Yep.
legislators.
Yep.
So I'm not, this is my first go
No,
around.
it's good, they're good.
So I don't know what it's called. Is it called Day at the Capitol? Is the other
Yeah.
SWCD send representatives?
Kind of what it's
Yeah.
called, but yeah.
Yeah, but at a big
Will you guys, will
I've
Wabash
gone a
send
few times,
someone?
and we're gonna be going.
Okay, there we go.
I
We'll
haven't
see you there.
cared.
We won't see Dave, but we'll see you there then.
So, yeah, and there's like a free roaming session, I think.
There's a
We got
few
couple
booths
snacks
usually
or
on the
something, I
outside,
think, at one time in the afternoon, and then you could talk to whoever you like. but-
Social hour
Yeah.
setting. And then the next day is the one-on-one with the legislators to
Make your
put forth your
appointments, I
priorities
think.
and requests. And I think the topic on the cheat sheet, I guess, or talking point sheet, or whatever you want to call it, was funding is threatening to be cut, just like everyone. So we need to advocate for this level of funding in order to maintain our level of performance. So that's kind of, just sharing the conversation from our board, that's kind of what we're going to be sent to discuss.
I'll touch on that when it's my turn.
So that's March 4th, March 5th, and then Sheila, I left my,
Meeting, yeah.
no, I'm just saying, Sheila, you can remind me, you were at the meeting, this last meeting at Winona County Soil and Water. Am I forgetting anything, or were those the main topics that we?
Mhm. Yep,
So-
just an opportunity to talk with the legislatures and express.
But at the
concerns.
meeting, were there other items in addition to that?
No, not really.
I mean, just kind of a review of what's coming up and going on, and
Mhm.
we did not elect officers, did we?
No, that was January.
See, I don't know where I am, what day it is, so it's all good.
Yeah.
That's all right. I didn't make it to your last meeting either. so-
Join the crowd.
I am.
February's a bad time, because we're usually running all around, it's hard for me to get to meetings. so.
Go ahead, Josh,
Amazingly
yeah.
Good
No,
job
it's-
of taking notes and keeping track of things, much better than me, though, I admire that.
Well, thank you.
Bob,
Appreciate that.
I don't have too much. We just approved the wage comp study. Got negotiations with the unions this year. Not looking forward to the results of that, but it's probably long overdue.
Been there, done that, Max.
Other than that, no, not a lot going on.
A couple of things, I want to touch on what Ross just talked about with the funding. So when I used to go to those, and the senators and or legislative officials that were there, and including the day before, I was one of the, I'm going to say multiple people that believed in this concept. There's been, in the SWCDs for a number of years, there's been a push for taxing authority. And they're still talking about it, and it's kind of, it's the left side pushing for that. I believe that it's not, first of all, feasible to do that, and of course, at moment's notice, oh my gosh, why wouldn't you want that? I think it would be the demise of the SWCD in Minnesota, because unfortunately, there's people that will vote to tax you right out of your house and home. And if you get the wrong people onto those types of boards, the accountability is very low for taxing authority because it's not a recognized group. You know, the officials are, the constituents are not looking at a taxing authority board and saying, well, wait a minute, why can these people raise my taxes? And they have some sort of saying like, hey, we elected officials to come in and do this. We don't need two sets of boards to look at. And I think ultimately you would start to see the shutdown of SWCDs because it would run, I believe, would run rampant every time they want another project. They just raise tax, and it would get out of control very, very quickly. In certain counties, it would bring a lot of light, negative. There'd be nothing really positive that would come out of it. And because I do believe in the SWCDs and the good that they do, and but yet it needs to be run very tight-shipped, I believe that taxing authority would absolutely destroy the SWCDs, and it would push local controlled projects into a state-bound situation because they dissolve that, and it's just one more push to bigger government. Because I think in certain cases, it would be erroneous increases in taxes. And so I've always been an advocate to leave it the way it is, work at the state funding level, federal funding level, local funding level, and let each county decide that based on their needs. And that is the way it's worked for this long. We managed to keep all of them going in the state. And going to taxing authority, I think, would, in a short amount of time, destroy the SWCDs because of the erroneous tax increases. So I've been an advocate going to these every year. I'm one of them that stands up and says, please don't do it. And I get a lot of evil looks when they say it because, again, we're taxpayers, and I just feel that that's the best way to do it. It's not the popular opinion at those meetings, but I'm not there to be the popular person. So
John, I had one other thing, especially since Dave is here. And this came up at the last meeting, and I can't remember everything, but this just popped in my head. So we're talking about just a brief conversation of the board regarding, I believe it starts in January, the Minnesota Family Medical Leave Act. Is that accurate?
That's
Yeah.
right. Thank you for bringing that up.
Are we all familiar with that?
Yeah.
So basically, my understanding is that an employee, an employer that has one or more employees must be part of this. So it's comparable to workman's comp insurance where the employer pays into a pool a premium, and then the employees take out of the pool when they have a life event or a qualifying life event, to use their terms. So just I'll speak in generic terms. So if the board has, we have 4 employees right now. So if one of our employees, we'll say, is in charge of grant writing, and the employee that's in charge of the grant writing has a qualifying medical event and can take up to 6 months off and receive 100% full pay in their world. So good for them. But now we as a board have to get this work done for the grant. So sure, we can try to hire someone short term. Good luck finding qualified candidates. But anyway, so the conversation and my question today is, what will Bowser do in light of, okay, we have an employee. This is, we'll just say a January 15th deadline is coming up. The employee says January 3rd, hey board, I have a qualifying life event. I'm taking the next 6 months off. We'll see you in 6 months. The board cannot fire the person. The board has to hire a new person and pay both full, well, the board would just continue to pay the premiums. It doesn't matter. But the question is, hey Bowser, are you going to grant us some leeway because our employee had a qualifying life event and is not going to perform the work? Are you going to grant back off on your deadline, or you know, what option do we have as a board if that were to happen?
as a state mandated thing to all us small businesses, this is the fastest way to destroy small businesses. Big businesses can absorb it, small businesses can't. It is just ludicrous. So what he's saying, and I'm going to concur back to this, is what is the state doing for us as all these small places?
And I want to get to that, just that exact question. I'm putting on my SWCD hat on our board. You know, the board is concerned. What are we going to do? We got a deadline. We got an employee that just left. Here we sit. The work's not getting done. Is Bowser going to grant some leeway, or, you know? And you've got hard deadlines. So how is this going to work?
We do have deadlines that are mandated, but we also have leeway with that. And, you know, we did that last year with Winona SWCD for quite a while. So yes, and we'll look at every situation. We haven't had one of those yet because this law just kind of kicked in. But I understand your hypothetical, and at some point that hypothetical is going to be real. Yeah. So yeah, we have quite a bit of flexibility in terms of granting extensions, and what we are required to do is send a report to the state legislature annually on the performance of our grantees in terms of grants management. And that's where that February 1st reporting deadline kind of kicks in, but we can grant extensions for situations, so that grantee isn't necessarily part of the report that goes to the legislature. So I hope that answers your question.
Wabasha County last night had their township officers meeting. And it was discussed there with, you know, township employees. Nobody's really full-time, but yet anybody earning a paycheck, the way I understand it, pays into it and can take the time. Well, they're trying to get the townships exempt. I mean, it's gonna be a mess, I agree with you.
It is just,
It's crazy.
it's asinine. I just, people voting for this stuff don't understand this is the fast track of business. They just can't get it. Small business can't absorb this stuff. They just can't. They just don't get it. This is why the big companies keep expanding, because the little guys just can't compete in this world. We can't do it. But they see it for what it is. Like, oh, it's such a good thing for a person. And then it's all anti-big corporations. It's like, this is what drives it. They can absorb it. We can't. I can't afford to hire somebody else temporary, then I gotta go pay them unemployment. I mean, you can't do it, you know, and then you wonder why the little businesses fail. 90% of them fail. 90% of them fail. And they go pass laws like this, that's just gonna keep pushing the small guy out. The big guys can absorb, and the big guys are the ones promoting us, going, heck yes, heck yeah, make it happen.
But, you know,
It's just unbelievable.
just the county employees, I mean, 100 and
They're forcing,
65.
they're forcing employers to take on the risk and responsibility of everybody's life. At what point are you accountable for yourself and what happens in your own life? It's just, I'm sorry, that's the cord in my back as a small business owner going, I can't, how? Like, it keeps me up at night, like, how are you gonna do this? So, good point, thank you.
And amen, I think you're spot on. This is a death spiral to small
It's a
business.
death
Instead of
spiral.
losing 90%,
And the
we're gonna
people
lose
voting think
95. Why are they voting for it? Because they want the
They want the benefit.
of my employee, one of our farm employee, one of our best people, been there 13 years. We're trying to have a family, we've got 2 kids already, we're gonna wait and have the next child in 2026.
So we can take
6
do that
months
payment
off.
twice, and then what do you do in another?
Purposely, they're doing it, and they're gleeful, they're happy, and they're gonna vote for the people who vote for that, and that's what it's all about.
And it's just the people that they don't get it, because there's no skin in the game for them. They can just receive the benefit.
Yes, so that's the challenge. Anyway, that's off topic, sorry.
No, it's not off
It's
topic.
not off
It affects all these, it affects, the SWCD is its own board, it's funded by its own system, and it's a real thing they've got. I mean, they can't afford to hire another person. What's that look like on that? I know it, I did all the
Well, you
voting.
don't just lose the person filling the position, you lose Amanda, you lose her 10 years of experience. You lose her relationship with the landowners and producers, and now you bring in a temporary person who doesn't know anybody. They're gonna, of course, expect Amanda's full wage to be hired, and so now it's just,
It buys votes.
it buys votes, that's
Buys
about
votes
it.
is what it does, but it's at the expense of small business, small communities, small organizations.
And I think, to your point, Josh, would be, it speeds up vertical integration.
100%, 100%.
And
Look
so
at
that's what
anybody wanting to
everybody's
start-
opposed to. Nobody wants 5 Elon Musks in the world. They want all these small businesses to succeed, but this
they're
is
voting
promoting
laws.
5 Elon Musks.
That's right.
So this
It's-
is the
it's
problem.
big business. And how people can't see through that, I do know why, because it's what's in it for me. But ultimately, it's a hindrance, sorry. All right, board reports for me. All right, so I go back to taxation. I've been an advocate for no taxing authority, as counterintuitive as that seems, but I think it'd be the demise of the SWCD. I was not at our last board meeting, because again, I was both the board meetings, SWCD and that, I was on vacation. But a couple of things that I know are coming up, we're seeing some talk about the dog kennel stuff again. We're doing some different projects around the county. Looking at a remodel of LEC. It was the last meeting it was at was a 4-1 vote. I voted in favor of it. Commissioner Ward did not, and I understand why. She just doesn't want her name associated to anything, although she does agree with my point why I voted for it, but it was to move forward on pre-design of the LEC. The only reason that is because the county, and this is what I even explained to Commissioner Ward in a separate conversation, the taxes that we paid collectively went up to the state and got redistributed back down to the city. The only way I can recoup any value out of that as a county constituent, not a city of Winona constituent, is to say, hey, as a county constituent, I get a free look as to what it might cost to go build an LEC with no commitment and zero cost. So it was the only way I could come up with as a taxpayer to actually try to recoup some of the costs that we paid into this project that we may or may not benefit from. And because it was a free look. Now, I do not like, hey, leverage this government entity to this government entity, because to me, it's like, it's a way to double tax you. But in this situation, it was the only way that I said, hey, we do have a problem. We can use funds that we already paid in indirectly to try to see if there's a solution for this. So we're not obligated as a county to move forward with the project, and there's no financial obligation, and there's no way to give that tax money back. It's the cities, they can do what they want. But we are asking that we have more documentation as to what and how those tax dollars are used. So I decided it's a free opportunity for us to say, is this a feasible thing to look at maybe moving together, because there was no cost to us. And then also we're looking at remodeling. And so we did allocate some dollars out of a reserve fund that we had to actually get us some hard numbers on what the remodel cost. And we know there's going to be a commitment to having somebody come in and do all the specs and everything else. So we allocated up to $100,000 to do that out of a $750,000 budgeted reserve, to decide, hey, this $2 to $5 million project, I thought that's a very low cost to get some hard numbers to that. So right now we have speculative numbers, and I'm not comfortable with those, because that's how you go with project costs. So that's our next big thing on the agenda we've been dealing with. We'll go from there. Yeah, sorry about the cord in my back, but the family medical leave thing, it's so counterintuitive. It's unbelievable. All right, so that's what I have. So anything else on the board reports? None? Oh, I'll say one more thing. In the ag industry right now, we just did a meeting over in Wells. We've done shows we were just down at the National Machinery Show in Louisville. We've been all over the country doing shows, and it's good to hear, just having discussions. Yesterday we did one, like I said, over in Wells on the flat country, heavy soil. That nitrogen management and fertilizer management is still in play. That room was packed yesterday. In fact, we were out of tables. And just the common consensus of how can we do a better job, and manure isn't a bad thing, and how can we get more out of our manure. A lot of big hog farmers over there, feedlots, hey, we're putting manure on for nitrogen, our P's and K's are going up, what can we do, how can we treat our manure different? So a lot of really good questions being asked in the countryside about a lot of things that we do and educate and teach people. Hey, you don't have to put on as much as you think, or whatever, et cetera. So it's good to see that there's a continuance of education before regulation, which everybody knows has been my coin phrase for years. So that makes me happy. So that's a positive. So, all right, board discussion and action items. So on to number 8, financial update. Sheila.
Okay, so right now, at the end of December, we had $114,122 for after we took out funding for what was pre-authorized or prepaid. And then also at the end of January, that didn't change much, $115,936. And of course, we're still waiting on the payment from the Whitewater drinking water grant.
Good. Any discussion on that? We do not need a motion for that. Not a proposal. Well, yeah, we would to accept.
Well, the finances are the finances.
Yeah. What's done is done.
Right.
Right, so we should be good. Okay, Whitewater drinking water protection. Oh, go ahead.
We have a letter to sign with Peterson Company for the audit for 2024.
So we just
No
need to
motion.
accept the letter?
No, we've already
We've already accepted it.
approved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just the the letter that needs my signature and your
Yours,
signature.
yeah, right, but there's nothing we need to
And
do.
then, no.
Yeah, we'll do that first.
Okay.
Can I ask how much the audit was?
Not cheaper than Smith Schaefer, was it?
It keeps going up.
700?
No, I want to say 23 or 24.
I know it's something like
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Kind of.
that. Peterson tends to be the
He's
cheapest.
been doing it. for
Yeah,
years,
and
so
they,
have
every
it.
year it goes up $100. And
It seems like 5,000.
no, it's not
No,
5,000,
That's
it's,
what I was thinking.
Well, I got
I
five
thought it was
on my
27.
too.
yeah, it doesn't say it in, the proposal letter, which was previously had that, but this is just saying, we understand that this is what will consist of an audit.
That does say 5,000 on page 15, or page 4 of the letter. You would be 5,000. Under the provisions of engagement, timing and fees.
Desktops and office equipment to feed some of our projects.
That does not look right, because it was 2,000 something.
Oh.
You said the cat 5 that.
Well,
I bet that's a typo.
I've got 5,000 in my head, but, you know.
I think it's been 5,000 to the SWCDs. That's kind of the number I have in my head from the district audits.
So you can go farther down.
Yeah.
Maybe we better hold on signing that until I confirm. 'Cause
Yeah.
So they're saying there's $5,000 and you're saying
Well, the
it's
letter says
2,200?
5,000, but I know that's not what the quote was.
No, it's 20, it was
But
2,000.
Dave's got
Yeah.
documentation that it was
Well, it's
5,000.
in the letter.
It's in the letter in the back.
So I think that's a typo.
Which page is it?
15,
Yeah.
No, it shouldn't have
Our fee for these services will be 5,000 for the audit.
been. So let's not sign that till I think it's.
Yeah, let's find out
It's
first,
not supposed to be.
because
They must
the
have
proposal,
changed it.
You know, sometimes, you know,
They didn't copy and paste, or they did copy.
They did
and
copy.
paste.
They did.
Because
Good
Olmsted's
catch.
5,000.
Good catch
yes,
on you guys.
thank you.
Hopefully we can
So
save.
let's not sign it till, and I'll catch you at a board meeting or something to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll
Okay.
do that next Tuesday. I did have one thing at the end I wanted to bring up. I should have brought it up with, I'll just do it last. So, okay. Whitewater drinking water protection grant update.
Okay, in the packets is the E-Link report that I submitted when the grant was completed. So that's the page that starts off with this table. So basically, it just shows, you know, how much was total budgeted, spent, and remaining balance, and how the expenditures went for the entire grant, which started in 2020. So that is all said and done, and now we are in the reconciliation. Typically for the Bowser grants, after you spend 50%, you do a reconciliation. And that didn't happen because the person that was in training, so she wanted to delay it until a later point. So that's where we are right now, is doing it now. Just to kind of show you, give you an example, this is the list of contracts, you know, it's many pages. But anyway, this is what I have copied for her to review if she shows up in person. I also have it scanned so I can email it, but it won't be in one email. So this is copies of all the documentation needed for any contracts, so cover crop contracts, septic system upgrades. These are educational expenses. And, yeah, cover crops, yeah, so that, these are all the cover crops. And all but 4 of the cover crop contracts were on the list to request to legal. All of the septic systems were, there were just 4 of them. And I think there's a couple of invoices. What's not here are the, and I will finish that up today, are the invoices received from SWCs for technical service for cover crops, and then also my documentation for my time. We'll have, this will be in more than one email. But anyway, that's kind of where we are at, so they're withholding that last 10% until they review these documents.
Like you said, that's our money now, so that's good.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Local advisory team grant update?
Okay, January 15th, we had a meeting in Elgin, and the meeting for Altura was scheduled for the 6th of February, but it got postponed another month until March 6th. So that'll be from 10 to 12 at the Altura Community Building there. And so it got delayed because there was a glitch that had to be resolved with modeling for that DWISMA. And so I think that's taken care of, so we're gonna have that meeting on March 6th. And so that's, and then.
10 a.m. to
Yeah, AM.
10 a.m.
Yep. And then also the grant that the Whitewater has ends at the end of June. So I've been talking with Don Burnell about redoing that grant. I'm not sure what the extension amount in time would be to help finish up these meetings. So there's that. Don did say that a number of farmers that have land in the DWISMAs have really been getting onto the Nitrogen Management Financial Assistance Program. So it's $5,000 a year that's available to try different things in your land in the DWISMA, including cover crops, delayed cover crop termination, demonstration sites, manure management, nitrate reduction, perennial crop, pre-plant nitrogen testing, precision ag, and small grains. So
They need to add nitrogen fixators to that category.
pre-plant nitrogen test, that's not, okay. So we need nitrogen, what is it?
Fixators.
Something beyond soybeans or alfalfa?
No, like integrated nitrogen fixators, meaning like live bacteria or enzyme
Yeah, okay.
functions that can create nitrogen through atmospherical processes, basically utilizing nitrogen gas.
Okay, that's
Utilizing
what
the
I'm
free
talking
nitrogen we have, we're breathing right now, you know? So, yeah,
And it's called integrated nitrogen fixator.
you could call it that. Nitrogen fixation, nitrogen
Fixation.
fixator, yep. Bacterial nitrogen fixation is what you'd call it.
Okay,
They're very, very powerful tools.
okay. All right, I will let her know that that is missing.
That was probably, like yesterday, that was probably one of the biggest talking points yesterday, was how can
Okay.
we use these things, and what's the nitrogen cutback look like? You know, like,
Okay.
how effective are they? How much can I go? What can I do? You know?
Mhm.
So there's even the manure guys, you know, that are
Mhm.
chasing nitrogen with their manure, but relative scared of the P and K levels getting up, or P or whatever. You know, that's what they're looking at, saying, hey, can I be pulling back and selling manure, or spreading it out more? And they're looking at those types of practices, because not every acre can get covered with a manure, green manure crop or whatever, you know. So they're very powerful tools. So,
Okay.
okay, cool.
All right, so anyway, that's where things are at with the local advisory team.
I did get a call, so item D here on that spongy moth, I did get a call somebody from the state.
Yes.
I have not had a chance since getting back. 'Cause it's been
Yeah, the
hell.
board meeting that you missed, Kimberly Filan Crummers,
Sounds right.
and then Matt Gallo.
This was a Gallo.
He's yeah. And so Kimberly and Matt came to the board meeting and presented to the county board. And then they met with me afterwards, so that's what I have. I put
Yep.
at your places the handouts that she gave me, I asked her for. And, but basically, they wanted to remotely present to the board, and I said, no, it's kind of hard here. But anyway, but the handouts are pretty self-explanatory, but basically the spongy moth, formerly known as the gypsy moth. And so Minnesota is kind of on the edge of its advancement from Wisconsin. And so basically what they will be doing, and they wanted to make sure that this board knew, because if you move on, in one of the handouts, there is a map showing their spray areas. And two of the blocks of land will be in the Whitewater area. And so in the event that they're gonna be spraying, they want all elected officials and people who need to know that that's what it is. And that they're spraying, what they're spraying is organic, so it will not impact organic growers. It basically confuses the male moths so that they can't find the females, so that they can't reproduce, and therefore address the expansion of them. And so it's not harmful to humans, pets, birds, and bees. She did tell me, Kimberly did say that because of budget cuts, they did have to really cut down on the number of acres that they're planned to be spraying. They had 170,000 acres planned, and it got cut. And she says that was the cut down version that they submitted, and then they had to cut down to 100,000 acres. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
so.
such a tough one because, you know, you see a kid sees a little caterpillar, oh, look at that.
I
You
know.
Yeah, and that's what's hard because you can't distinguish what's beneficial and what's not.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So they anticipate that it'll be somewhere towards the end of June. It'll depend on temperature and, you know, monitoring and.
Make a flyer, if you see this caterpillar, step on it.
Kind of like Asian carp.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, but she did offer, and I will be emailing her after this meeting. If anybody wants to be on their notification list saying, hey, we're gonna be spraying tomorrow, I can certainly put the whole entire board on that list so that, just so that if anybody's calling, wondering, you know what it's about.
And it's helicopter application, or?
No, small planes.
Okay.
Okay. Agency reports. It's just you. There's nobody behind you.
I guess two updates. Grant-related updates. I probably talked to you in the past about a regional conservation partnership program, or RCPP, that Bowser applied for a couple years ago with the USDA NRCS for soil health practices. We have an agreement now with NRCS, and we actually just put out what's called a request for interest to SWCD. So we've requested $25 million in federal funds, which to date we've heard are still coming. And then we are partnering that with $21 million of state funds, half of which really has already gone out. Like a year ago, we put out a request for proposals for SWCDs called Soil Health Capacity or Soil Health Staffing Grants. So I think like 50 SWCDs have hired additional staff to work on soil health practices with those funds. And then we also delivered soil health delivery grants a year ago, which can be used really for anything, used for cost share funds, technical time, training, supplies and equipment, as long as it's not a drill or a seeding device. So what we have out currently until the end of the month is called a request for interest to SWCDs, and I think it's 70 SWCDs are eligible. Any county with at least 30% agriculture land base is eligible for one of these grants. And the base grant, initial grant, will be $180,000. 150 of that which can go to financial assistance to producers. That's the federal money, and then the remaining 30,000 can go to provide reimbursement to SWCD staff for their technical time. It doesn't have to. A district could use all 180,000 for financial assistance to landowners if they want to, but the $30,000 of state money that's part of that packet can.
Finally, they're regulating what goes to administrative time, because I've seen things that are 90% administrative and 10% boots on the ground, and that is so frustrating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they have latitude, because SWCDs, they do have other funding sources that they can use for the technical time, so it's going to give them flexibility on how they want to use that money. And then once they've encumbered or allocated 80% of that first base grant of $180,000, then they will be eligible to apply for a $120,000 grant with similar sideboards. $20,000 can be staff time, $100,000 for financial assistance, or you can use all 120. And then those additional grants will be allocated on a monthly basis. So if an SWCD has a really active soil health program, they could conceivably be requesting $120,000 every month until that funding is gone. So this is a program that's set to go for 4 years. So we'll kind of see how that rolls out. And again, we've not heard from NRCS that that funding is going to get pulled back, but we haven't heard that it's not going to get pulled back either. So, yeah.
I think, didn't this come up at our last meeting?
It probably came up at your SWC board meeting.
And that it's sounding from that our manager was conversing about it, and they're excited about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Any questions on the soil health? So the other grant request for proposal that just went out within the past week, we also applied for an RCPP for water storage practices, and that is $21 million in federal funds. We don't have a signed agreement yet with NRCS. The proposal's been approved, but we're still in negotiations on the details with NRCS. So while we wait to get those negotiations completed, we did put out an RFP for, I believe, $2 million of just the state money that we will be using as match for that federal money. And so that can be used for any practice that's going to retain more runoff and water on the landscape. Could be water and sediment control basins, could be terraces, could be side inlet structures, could be bigger, dams as well. So We do have some watershed districts that were also sponsors of that proposal, one of which is the Cedar River Watershed District out Austin area. And they committed some of their funds as match towards this RCPP also. So, and that particular watershed district has put in a number of fairly large water storage dams that there's not a permanent pool, it's a temporary pool. It'll pool runoff for about 48 hours. So they've got a pretty good history of working with producers in that watershed for projects like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, anything else?
I guess the one other thing, and I don't know where this is going to go, but there is a bill from some, I'm sorry, I don't remember the particular legislators in Southeast, maybe Sheila might be aware of it, where they're proposing to be, use state funds to support rehabbing old structures, old ponds, cleaning out the pool area.
I've pushed for that for years.
I think
Yeah.
Muskowski was one of the.
I think
Yes,
Steve,
yes,
yeah, it's a
yeah.
Republican bill, I know
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's neat is I think there's just been so much traction with this on what I would say would be the alternate side from what I've seen sitting on these boards for so long. And then to me, it's, what I'm seeing is a common sense approach from that side. Like, why are we're paying to put them in, but is there, you know, is there relevance to keeping them up? I've argued that for years. There's
Yeah,
no
so
fun
we
in
were,
cleaning them up.
we were asked to comment on it. I think that, I don't think I'm stepping out of school by saying this. The issues I think that we raise as a state agency is why the geography of just these counties in Southeast when there's practices all around the state that have been put in for years that maybe need to be rehabbed. And then the other issue, I don't know if it's an issue, the other question I guess that we raise is, you know, when a landowner puts these practices in, they're committing to do operation and maintenance. So
I don't disagree with that.
where does operation and maintenance end and assistance to do it over begin? So that's
It's always been the argument.
Yeah.
And I think there's, my opinion on these two challenges are, one, there's sometimes a generational change. You know, dad put it in and now here I am to take care of it.
Yeah.
And I may or may not have, it's very similar to the argument I make. You buy a piece of property, the septic tank goes bad, now you're asking me to pay for it. I'm already paying for my septic tank and you want me to pay for yours. That's no different than the front door goes bad,
Yeah.
right? The house, the roof goes bad, I shouldn't have to pay for your roof. So it's an occupational, or it's a hazard of buying something.
well, on the flip side of that.
But the flip side is that also for the best of everybody, when it comes to erosion control and everything else, that, hey, it's typically cheaper to clean one out than it is to start completely
And
over.
that was a good location for that dam 30 years ago. It's
Right.
still a good location for that dam. The other thing that we want to make sure is that if we're going to commit state dollars to this, that it has to be done to some quality criteria. It's not just bringing a skid steer in
Digging it out.
and cleaning it out. It's got to meet current, you know, technical standards and specs when it's done.
The second thing that I'd argue to that is, you know, when we talk about location-wise, I grew up in Nobles County on a wildlife. In fact, we sold our wildlife to the Pheasants Forever, and it now belongs to the state. They donated it to the state, and the very land I grew up on, even though they had the governor opener there, you know, it was a farm and a licensed wildlife. So I've done this my whole life, and the challenges there versus the challenges here, this is a lot more unique. So to argue that Southeast Minnesota doesn't have some pretty unique challenges versus the Flatlanders. And that's our issue, is that we have a lot of challenges here compared. And so, you know, the argument I would say is that we're in a pretty diverse location for the percentage of agriculture land we have versus
Yeah.
if I were to go up by Duluth or Thief River Falls or someplace like that, that's not gonna have the same challenge.
Well, there's a lot of these old ponds that are in the Whitewater watershed, so I just wanted to mention that.
100%. Lynn?
I just had a question. I've thought a lot about this too, because we went to see Druskowski a couple of years ago, and he had already had the idea of this legislation, but, so I always bring up, well, for cleaning these ponds out, what's up above? I mean, I don't know everybody's situation, but I know some places in particular where maybe it was a big pasture or field when the pond was put in, and it was remedied for maybe the mistakes of the 20s, and then it was better, but then somehow, with the cost of land or price of the crops, then it got to be tilled so that it has a free flow of sediment again. And so I wonder if there's any way we could put some kind of language in there to
Well,
prevent that from.
so there is in a lot of the practices a requirement that the watershed that's contributing runoff to that project has to be treated to T. So there has to be adequate land treatment so that the practice can be maintained and can actually do its job.
The issue that we saw years ago when I first brought this up, because there's never really been funding for the pond cleanouts, was documentation. It's very similar to the wells. We're running around blaming manure and everything else, but until we actually started requiring people to put wells into code and documenting that happening, what's the case in Roanoke County? 0.3% fail. It's virtually none. But before that, there was no requirement. There was no documentation to even know what the requirement was. And you go back in the records and there was very little documentation to how these projects were being done. We know they exist, but we can't open up the files and be like, this was the requirements to do all this. And yeah, there had to be a certain amount of grass waterway. Now, there's a pile of it, and even the mandated that's coming in, there's a lot more boxes and things to check. So the documentation is part of the problem, in that we don't have any, we can't look back 40, 50, 60 years ago and say, here's the requirements. We don't have those documents, they don't exist. So, but now with the digitalization, we can have that versus let's pull the file drawer open and look for Larry, somebody, 70 years ago we put this pond in for. So again, I think things are changing, and I've argued that point that, hey, we're gonna be able to hold landowners a little more accountable if they're gonna ask for taxpayer-funded scenarios, and it's a benefit for everybody. The landowner wins, the taxpayer wins, but again, we gotta have these kind of standards if you're gonna ask for taxpayer help. So I've made it, I just think it's a phenomenal thing if we can lessen the cost of these projects and not have to start over. And yeah, like you said, we're gonna have to have some sort of accountability as to how they get
exactly.
done, so it's a good thing. So that's good. I hope it keeps moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think it's a way to use a taxpayer dollar
I
better.
appreciate the fact that we were asked to, to comment back on it.
Yeah. Good. Any other discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, we are the, I have one thing I wanted to bring up, and I forgot to bring it up earlier. So one of the things, and I've been working with Nolan County to do this, but, and I realize maybe I'm in a little bit of a unique situation, but I notice, and the more I get involved in the government side, especially in the county side, of just time management. And we spend a lot of time with a little meeting here, and a little meeting here, and a meeting this week, and a meeting that week. So you take a look at I'm just gonna use this as an example. I had to make a decision when I left town. It left me with 1 week open to try to get out because of all the different meetings. So I chose to leave last week because I had to miss, kind of 2 weeks, but I had to miss a county board meeting and miss SWCD meeting, one other meeting. Or I had to miss this week, which I chair the Road and Bridge Committee for Roanoke County and chair this board. So it's like the lesser of the evils to try to get away. And every week there's constant meetings being scheduled, making it very difficult to travel for work, have a life outside of all this, et cetera, et cetera. So I did challenge Administrator Holte to say, hey, can we start making these meetings fall in, current weeks that we already have other weeks. We seem to have meetings every week, all month, and making it very difficult. Why aren't we trying to schedule these offsite meetings, on the same day as another meeting, or at least the same week as another meeting, making it easier for people? And really the comment was, we can. You know, there's no reason not to. My question with this meeting, board meeting, is it falls outside of, it's another week where we have to schedule meetings. So our road bridge committee meeting concurred. They said, yeah, there's no reason. Let's actually schedule it the same day as a board meeting so that you don't have to drive down multiple times and get paid a per diem. And, you know, it's like, I don't even charge the county for my mileage. I do that for all for free. And even though we could, and so I just said, out of the sake of being efficient with their time and meetings, can we start scheduling these meetings, at least as a minimum, close to a day of another meeting, or the same day as another meeting, or at the far end, at least in the same week as other meetings are happening? So I'm just asking the board, and we've done this, we used to meet monthly, you know, and we realized that probably wasn't necessary with this board. You know, I even challenged it to going every 3 months, obviously you guys know that. Not because I don't enjoy this, actually my favorite part of these meetings is hearing what all the other counties and SWCEs are doing, so I enjoy that. It's really how we learn and know what's going on. But I do look at this conflicting time schedules that we have to try to manage, you know, our lives outside of this. So I'm just like curious, I know our board meetings, our county board meetings are the 2nd and the 4th Tuesdays of every month. Is that what the other county commissioner?
Ours are normally first and third.
First and third.
Was not on that county board.
No, I know, but do you know when your guys is, who's?
Well, in Waukesha County.
Yeah,
But
but what would be,
I think Olmsted County is the
They're
same.
Tuesdays,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, my question is there a way that we could streamline this so we're not dumping all the way through?
Well-
But the problem is if we change it, it's gonna fall opposite of what you are.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes a difference
have
to
to
you.
be some concise overview of the whole thing, but I know in December when we had this meeting, the afternoon of having our soil and water meeting, that worked pretty slick, I thought. Just get a couple things done in one day.
That's what I'm looking
So
for,
I-
even
I
in 1
think I would
week or something that
concur
we
that
can
that's something to
to
work
look at.
with.
Yeah, because it just gets to be difficult to try to make it all work. And I'm not asking anybody to accommodate my schedule, but how do you, can we come up with, is there some way we could be scheduling this meeting better that would work for
You're
everyone?
looking for a sweet spot.
Looking for a sweet
Yeah.
spot,
Yeah.
yeah. And we've just always done it this way, and there's for no reason other than I think
Yeah.
we've just always done it this way.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it's always been.
And I just want to bring up too, looking at the schedule we currently have, the third Thursday, you know, every other month. Ann Schwertel pointed out that the June meeting this year happens to be on the Juneteenth holiday. And then I know the October meeting conflicts with the MEA weekend, and we've got some things going on here. So, anyway, so those are the 2 things that I know on the current schedule that are
Too many holidays.
too many holidays. I don't know where they keep coming up with these things, but anyway.
I gotta head out.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
No,
I fully hear you, Josh. I got stuck with a lot of committees when I was elected. And this week has been pure hell.
Yeah, it's a rigmarole, and I'm trying to figure out, can we schedule something in somewhere somehow that
I
works?
get it. You know, whatever works for the rest of you, I can.
Does this work, or is there something better for you? Or is it a horse and piece for you?
It's a horse piece. Tuesday was our board meeting. Wednesday morning was Three Rivers. This morning is this afternoon I've got labor management and Waukesha. It just,
They never end.
this third week of the month is just.
Sounds to me like you could use one less on this week.
Yeah, right.
Well, and I'd be willing to switch it to the same schedule as the other one if that helps you out, because my suggestion would be if we could move, and so then we even look at the time of the day. We look at a guy that's farming, we look at farmers, we look at farmers, we look at me. Would a 1:30 work better? You know, would something after lunch work better versus trying to get here by 8:30 in the morning, which I know can be difficult for some guys. I'm just open to any discussion. Is there a better way? I just started realizing this a while back, going, oh my gosh, the juggling the schedule. And then I started asking at the Road and Bridge Committee meeting, is there anybody, would this work better for if we changed it up? I'm asking on this committee, because there's no set time for this. And we always see everybody's kind of getting in right at the last second. you know, and I think that would probably happen, but sometimes afternoons are easier than mornings, you know. So I'm just open for anything, I guess.
So as a farmer in the winter, early morning is more difficult, but in the summer, it's gonna be better because we wait for the hay to dry.
Yeah.
And then, okay, the hay's dry starting at noon,
Yeah.
afternoon, I can't come, so.
Right, okay.
So
that's
there's
kind
that.
of what the Root River SWCD does. They have it in the morning, part of the year, and then they switch to an afternoon meeting.
Well, so let's stay in the morning, but what happens if we moved it to, say, the fourth Tuesday of the month? I know that would help me, left it in the morning, if you're okay with that. If we moved it to the fourth, it would take one more off from your third.
And you're saying, just to clarify, you said Tuesday, but did you mean Thursday, the fourth Thursday of the month?
No, I'd like to switch it to a Tuesday.
Okay,
Because
so you
the
would,
Thursdays, the fourth Thursdays are conflicting with,
so he'd like to switch it to a Tuesday.
So in Waters, you guys are fourth Tuesday?
Thursday. Soil and water is the fourth.
Thursday, and if we did it to a Tuesday,
Tuesday.
you could combine 2 meetings into 1 week. You take 1 week off from your busy schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And has it been discussed before, could it move to a quarterly, or it still needs to be bi-monthly?
We discussed it, we wanted to, you know, Steve Jacob is actually the one that kind of pushed, and I could see it too, that, you know, the agendas were getting light, trying to do it once a month. You know, and we went to twice, and it's worked very well, with the exception of like what we've done. You know, if something comes up, I'm at the board meeting, I can come down and sign it. It's probably the advantage we have with being a chair from Winona County, that I can sign off on things going down in board meetings versus one of you guys would have to try to drive and get together.
What are the rules for something that's time sensitive as far as electronic communication or something like that? If that came up, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. You know, I definitely could tell we've got a little more context, you know, moving into a bi-monthly situation. Could it go to a quarterly? Absolutely, I think it could. It would just make it a little harder on the timing of financial payments. That's what we kind of deemed was part of why we did what we did. And so the compromise to that right now is saying, can we find better scheduling so that, again, it gets the complexity of life coming into play.
well, the other option would be similar to what the TSA does. I mean, they only meet twice a year, but they have an executive committee that does the financial things that need to be done when they need to be done.
Right.
And I think that Joint Powers Board already pre-approved those. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
That, you know, that,
I think so.
Part of what I see on here is that we don't have any major projects. You know, we don't have any major oversight projects. I would say probably the local advisory side is probably our biggest thing going on. And you know, this isn't just efficiency, is, you know, do we feel that we can operate and still do the justice of this board meeting and then fill in the blank X amount of times per year? Is it 6? Is it 4? Is it 2? Is it 3? You know, how does that look like? I think we can identify a time frame as well as how many times to meet. And this is something that should be reviewed, I think, almost yearly anyway, and I've tried to bring it up, just.
So my question is, with Bowser's push to one watershed, one plans, you know, the Whitewater watershed was started way before one WWP. Would it be beneficial to dissolve Whitewater and move more with one watershed, one plan?
Yeah, no, it's been brought up before. It has, Bob.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just,
Well, you gotta go back to the beginning of this board, and it was intent was because there were so many issues in this watershed.
yeah.
And there really wasn't an oversight. And SWCDs, although they were active, really in that era, there wasn't the communication that there was today.
Sure.
And so the intent was, hey, for all of us to get on the same page in such a valuable area that encompassed 3 different counties, how can we do that? And that was the intent of this board, was to try to everybody get on the same page. The crazy part is that we've kind of solved a lot of the major problems. And now we're kind of down to just these specifics here and specifics there, which encompasses back to, can this board operate by just simply the SWCDs of the 3 counties all conversing together in a fashion that I believe it happens. I've even seen it since I've gotten on these boards almost a decade ago to now. I've sat on this board every year. Just the communication, like I said, that's my favorite part of the board, is always the communication aspect. But now you got, everybody's kind of talking to everybody, and that really never used to happen like it used to. And I think she was a big part of that coordination, and you know, everybody knows her, and so that's good. It's been discussed many times as to the need for this. I think just the same as so many other boards that sit in these different watersheds. I think, what do we call them, like 30-some boards or some crazy thing there was. So I don't disagree with that. And it was part of my push to say, can this board still facilitate and operate, but maybe cut the per diems and the cost out and the time, and still do the good deeds and what needs to happen. And we might find out, I mean, I remember saying this 4 years ago, we might find out in 5 years that we don't need to even exist, because we're able to accomplish what this board is accomplishing through the SWCD. I think one of the talking points I had to go against that talking point of myself was, we do have the opportunity to write for separate grants versus from the SWCD. Is that, I think that's what I brought up, meaning the Whitewater board can write its
Sure.
own set of grants
Yes.
outside of what the SWCD. So it's a way for us to pool more money into the area. But then I said, is the need to administer that once a month, twice a month, once a quarter, twice a year, or a year?
So even.
Does that make
Well,
sense? And that was the
yeah.
benefit of keeping it.
Yeah.
So even, should we dissolve and go with one watershed, one plan? The one watershed doesn't have the authority to write for special grants.
The one watershed, one plan, the WinLAC,
Yeah.
they can have grants, but right now, the River SWCD is the fiscal on behalf of the WinLAC. But other entities within, like for example, Wabasha SWCD can write a grant and administer it
Right.
for the WinLAC area, because they're a partner in the WinLAC. So there's, that can't, it's just the way the WinLAC is organized. They did not want a joint powers board, but we have a joint powers agreement that the fiscal will handle all those pieces. So you can do that, but I know there is, right now with the WinLAC in place, there is a redundancy. But when you mention grants, because there's more and more funding each year for one watershed, one plan, each funding cycle, there's less money available in the pot to be awarded for these competitive grants. So so it'll reach a point where that amount is very small and will be very competitive. So that's kind of, unless it's somewhere else you're getting money, but right now the mainstay are those Bowser grants. The MPCA money, we've had grants, the 319 grants, but the feds had the state change their 319 program, so now they're only doing the focused small watersheds. And they've already been selected for, throughout the state, and so those are, I think, up to 20 years, focusing on one watershed to make it good. And so we don't have the 319 money anymore either. So that's kind of the rub,
It's getting harder to find funding for
Yes.
these boards like this.
Yep.
And because of that, unfortunately, it also takes away the need for these types of boards. And it gets to that
Right.
point where it's like, can we do this a different way and more efficiently?
Yep.
It is getting harder and harder, and that's even on the fiscal. So what stopped it the last time, I don't remember who was, I know you were on the board.
A couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago, were you?
Yeah.
Steve was on.
Was, we just looked at needing, okay, we're gonna stop it at twice a month because we need to understand the fiscal aspect. When can we sign checks? And I think you've done a phenomenal job at working through that and asking for forgiveness when we can't do things like
Yeah.
what we did.
Yeah.
And there's a benefit to me being the chair. Not because I need to be the chair, I don't need another job. But, you know, being able to come down and sign things or whatever. So it's just fortunate that you're one of them, you know, whatever. It makes it
Yeah, that
smooth.
does, yeah.
Smooths things
Yeah.
out. But I concur with what you say. I've been challenging, but I challenge all these boards. We do, you know, the road and bridge, you know, if there's nothing on, we might not meet for 6 months, you know? So it just depends on, you know, what that looks like. So I guess I'm not ready to dissolve the board, but I definitely would like to look at, maybe we need to go to a quarterly meeting. Is that possible? What do you think, Sheila? And I'd like to change the date. I'd like to get some dates that work,
Sure.
timing and dates that work better.
I think it definitely could work quarterly. The one challenge is, you know, if there would be a grant opportunity coming up, usually they have an RFP that's released, and then 30 days later it closes. You know, so it's very possible you're stuck in between.
And that could happen on a bi-monthly.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
So in an instance like that, is there an option to do a Zoom meeting, emergency meeting, or?
I suppose.
I mean,
But
I don't
we
know
need
how
we would need approval to write the grant.
Right. Well, unless, and I have done this in the past, where I go ahead and do a grant, and hopefully they'll take it, you know.
Well, so the question I propose is this. Can we create the authority as a board to preemptively grant writing? We can always deny
Mhm.
if we get the grant.
Exactly, that's right.
And as
I've
long
done
as
that
we say
before.
it's within the scope of what
Of the objectives.
the objective of this board, that is preemptively allowed, and we do it on a yearly basis. That's part of our January meeting, where we grant the permission for that grant writing, if it's within the scope of what we do, and we review that once a year. I think on an audit, that would pass 100 times over.
Yeah.
Any argument to that?
Elon says no.
I don't know why, but that's pretty efficient.
Well, and, you know, if,
That was a joke.
if a grant opportunity comes along and you question whether you should, I mean, just
I can
Well, you
call-
could always
I
call
can
the chair,
email or
call.
and say,
call
yeah.
or email.
Yeah, what do you think? See, I think we could do that. And I just think for the sake of the accountability of the taxpayer and what we're doing, I don't want to lose you as a positional agent, because you're excellent at what you do in grant writing and organizational skills, but I just question the need to have to meet as frequent. And quite honestly, when we do meet, I think we'll have more substance to these meetings. And not that this is bad, but, you know, we'll definitely be, and through communications and emails and things like that, I think we can really make things work well. So what I'm kind of hearing, I'm going to sum this up a little bit, is we potentially could move this to a quarterly meeting. I think we could move the date. I would like to see the date, if it's okay with everybody else. And please tell me this is wrong. It sounds like Bob would like to free up it the third week. I wouldn't mind moving it to the fourth week on a Tuesday morning at same time, because that would help. And you're in the morning. Would you have a problem with moving it to the fourth Tuesday of the month in the morning?
Nothing really matters. We don't have no calls anymore. I'm very flexible.
And that would free up a day. Would you mind, Bob?
Nope, that's fine.
James? Does it matter to you?
Probably not.
So the only potential is we don't have dates in January.
He doesn't count, he's not.
And I don't know what their board schedule is.
I don't know.
I
either.
know
Can we
they've
look it up
got,
quick?
And
I know they meet on Tuesdays.
yeah, but I just don't know
I
what time.
Like,
Let's look it up real.
no,
I
it's
don't have
it's
internet.
in the morning.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, we better find that out. Do we have internet? Anybody have internet? Do they have internet?
I don't think I do on my phone.
I remember Steve Jacobs making a comment once, how much money the county spent to get internet here? Don't have it. I mean,
I'm gonna run out front. 'cause they'll
That
have it
was
here quick.
in the meeting
Let's see if
here.
they can look it up. Because if that's that way, there's definitely more.
The negative to less meetings is less,
No, that's true. Maybe we need to go back monthly.
maybe we should, I think monthly, all in favor of monthly? No worries, Josh, we'll be here.
What happened?
We're going back monthly.
Just so we can get the treats.
Oh, yeah, well, no, I want the turtles. I make a motion that Sheila makes turtles every week.
Yeah, December I do those.
I was
Cookies
gonna
are
say,
fine
I
with
think
me.
that's the end of the year.
God
Well,
bless
I'm gonna
you.
make some for my stepfather for his 90th birthday.
Well, that's awesome.
Okay. Public meetings. Oh, this is when they will be broadcast. So it doesn't tell us when they'll be. Commissioner agenda review is February
It's like
20.
we have Wi-Fi, so.
Commissioner agenda review is February 27th. I don't know what date that is. Board of Commissioners, March 6th at 11 a.m.
This is Homestead.
Yeah. And then March 18th at 6 p.m.
I got no service.
I'm surprised I can get one, because I don't.
Do you have service, Ross?
Yes, there it came. So you have to go in and
Oh,
accept the
accept the
terms.
Wi-Fi, okay.
It says something about you have to click on accept the terms and then, so
Okay.
now I suddenly have it.
Okay.
So what day of the week is March 6th? Is that-
I got a calendar.
It's gotta be a Thursday.
March 6th is a Thursday.
Okay. And then March 18th,
It's a Tuesday and that's the third Tuesday.
and it says 6 p.m. So I'm guessing, it looks like
They're on the first and third.
first and third, yeah. So they would be, have an opening on the fourth Tuesday.
Assuming they don't have any committees to.
Right,
Right.
and I have no idea what,
You know, one thing, I'm kind of glad that Wabasha County keeps the same committees. Where Olmsted, they rotate them all the
they
time.
rotate them all, yeah.
And it's like, to me, it makes more sense to have some consistency on those committees.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, so it looks like 11 a.m. on the first Thursday and 6 p.m. on the first Thursday, and then the third Tuesday, 6 p.m. At least that's what it is for
okay.
March.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
think
say if
keeps
it's a recent.
longevity in a position, I think it's good, because like when I go to the Soil and Water Convention, I mean, there's people that come and sit right down with me comfortably, you know, and start a
Yeah.
conversation, because you've seen them a few years before.
Well, and having, in my personal opinion, it's valuable, more meetings, more frequently to get these ideas. That's a very good idea, the coffee and conversation,
Sure.
you know, and just to know what everybody else is up to. So if you have less meetings, we'll have less of that communication. So there's a balance,
Yeah.
but quarterly might be sufficient.
Mhm. Yeah,
Have to take better notes, I will.
Yeah.
That's
I guess-
too bad about
although Lynn,
Jenna.
I am
That's
impressed that you
terrible.
read the binder that I made.
I skimmed through it, but it was pretty quick.
Yeah, so you did do that.
And what was Josh's wish? Leave it in the morning?
Uh-huh.
Yes, the fourth Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. That's what I heard him
Yeah.
say.
Okay.
And we just gotta figure out which month. It's February.
I was actually thinking, but I guess people don't like the afternoon.
And that, we can shift gears if need be, but that's the, maybe it'll rain that day.
Yeah,
No, there's never gonna be a perfect time.
No, I was just thinking like the fourth Thursday in the afternoon. That way like you have, well, I'd have.
Two meetings.
two
You're allowed to
meetings,
miss,
one in the morning, one in the afternoon.
well, if you have to, I mean,
Sure.
I have it ready for farm-related things, if it comes
So
up.
it's very odd, it's the next one is March 6th, and then it's March 18th, which is a
Yep, in the
Thursday.
evening, which is it?
In the, yeah,
Right.
they're evening meetings. So,
Consistently in the summer especially, I would agree.
so it looks like they're evening and they're opposite, so it would work to move it to a Tuesday morning.
Well,
That's personal, but
No,
everybody's
same
different.
as you though.
Yeah. well, the
Hate to stop
18th
once
is a
you're going.
Tuesday.
But it's in the evening.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so it would work to move it in the morning. Yeah,
Mhm.
it'd be the same thing for Commissioner Senju, I think that's Senju. So it'd be the same thing for him, where you'd have now, instead of multiple meetings, multiple days, he could do it all in one day. So-
provided they don't have committee meetings.
Yeah, I looked up the
Before
whole
they're-
schedule, and
Right,
it looks
but-
clean, yeah.
I don't know
I
either.
don't either.
What all their committees.
If you look at their meeting schedule, it looks correct. I mean, you could go through here and
Yeah.
look at
But I
everything.
mean, a couple of years ago, Josh, I brought that up, like, I'm on the highway committee, I'm on
Oh, it just gets to be so many.
the personnel committee, it's like, well, can we have these meetings same day as board meeting? Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's always just kind of in the way it is, until you challenge it, like, is there a better way to do this?
So I started 7 down there instead of 8, you know?
Yeah,
What's-
that's exactly it. That's what we did at the road and bridge. We're scheduled it after our board
Yeah.
meeting now, and everybody's fine with it. Actually, Commissioner Warren, yeah, this is great. Now we don't have to drive down twice. So, this one I don't mind. It's a short drive, but, so let me ask you, so with the consensus of the board today, do we feel a need, could we make a move to go to quarterly? Anybody's thoughts on that?
I would be in favor of that.
I would too, and, you know, checks need to be signed, I can run down or whatever, you
Mhm.
know, make it work.
Make it work, yeah, I'd be in favor
Or
of
I
it
see
too.
it Winlac, or, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
Any discussion from,
Makes a difference to me, and things do seem somewhat light a lot of times, but we do have other conversations too, but maybe one more month is worth it to cut the cost a little bit or whatever, so.
yep. James?
I don't feel strongly one way or the other.
Okay.
Well, then I'll make the motion to move to a quarterly meeting.
We'll make one, and then I'd like to make a motion for the time too. We can do that, if you want to do one at a time. Okay, let's make a motion. So we have a motion on the table to move to a quarterly meeting. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Lynn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion approved. I would like to make a motion to move the meeting to the fourth Tuesday of the month at the same time, 8:30, and in the same location.
But since you're chair, you can't make a motion, so I'll do it.
Well, I can if nobody else can make a motion, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't, isn't that parliamentary procedure, the chair's
Yeah,
not
I think
allowed?
so.
Typically.
I tried not to, but.
We'll leave it as Josh, leave it as Josh.
Nope,
then.
you make, Ross made the motion, he said he would. so-
Okay.
Is there a
I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion by Ross, second by Bob to move the meeting to the fourth Tuesday of the month at the same time, 8:30 at Whitewater location.
Okay, which month now?
Yeah,
May?
Well, it's gonna be quarterly, so we would go from February to March to April to May, correct? Right,
but then that doesn't get you on the quarterly
Schedule.
schedule for the year.
for the year.
Well, one in December, right? Probably.
Yeah, we'll want 1 year end, I would assume.
Yep. Actually, we want one January. Because
Could be
technically,
new officers, I suppose, or whichever one's the first one, but.
technically we want one in January, wouldn't we?
What's more important though, the end of the year or the January?
Well, if it's in January, you potentially would have a conflict with knowing who's gonna be on your board, because they have their meeting on the fourth Thursday.
Well, January,
Always did that.
but if we're after
Well-
everybody's, if we go to the end, we'd actually be okay.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, we'd be fine.
Oh,
but the fourth Thursday might come after the fourth Tuesday.
So she's saying that they'll have their board meeting on the Thursday to declare their delegate for this.
Right,
So then if
Well,
that's,
so you don't know.
No, you
who's-
usually do, there would be a meeting before that, because if our meeting's at the end of the month, there's gonna be at least one, like this year, we actually had 3 meetings scheduled in January. We had the first available Tuesday after the first.
But what about the SWCDs that meet monthly at the end of the
the
month?
January meeting, the last year's rep will just have to come. You know,
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, yeah.
but
It's no different,
thinking-
but it's no different than what we have now, because we just
Right.
wouldn't have had a meeting in January, and then the new person would have came on the next one, so.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just gonna fall concurrent to however that cycle works, so. Well, okay, so let's just say this, if we leave it at the current schedule, actually, it solves itself.
Right.
Because you'd have one in November, and then January, February, March. Right?
Or February, if it's
February,
2 months.
yeah, February. So we'd actually end up having a meeting right now, just the same as,
Right,
because we
right.
had one in December before,
which is after everybody else's.
which is after
January
everybody's
meetings.
changed, and it would actually work. So if we actually kept it on its cycle,
yeah.
Well,
that would solve the
Okay.
year-end problem. It would also solve the problem in December when the county board, Winona County Board, alternate their meetings. So that actually solves that problem too,
Okay. So
if we kept it right
February,
on the schedule.
so
May.
we'd be a quarterly structure, but not a true quarterly.
Not a true quarterly within the year.
Well,
Yep.
then, so then do we call it every 3 months, starting February, or, you know, I don't.
Quarterly is still quarterly, meaning every third, third month. So we could actually call it meets every third month.
There,
Okay.
there, I think I like that
Yeah.
better.
And that
Reduce
solves all our
confusion.
conflicts. That solves the conflicts of the
Okay.
elections.
yeah, so
Yep.
that actually lines up with the WinLAC schedule, actually.
Yep.
It's February, May, August, November.
See, they're doing
Because
it
we
too. See, we
had-
can do it, they're doing
We
it.
had it in March, and then we had it, the last meeting of the year was December, and it always conflicted with the SWCD convention and the AMC
Yep.
thing.
So there you go.
And so we didn't have
solves
one
the
in
problem.
December.
Mhm. Well done.
You're still not getting out of turtles though.
Okay,
Line item,
And, you know, like I say, year end, if there's checks to sign, I can run down. We'll make it work.
yeah.
So we have a motion and a second to change it to the fourth Tuesday of the month in the morning, same time, same location.
Okay.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
and just to clarify, meeting every third
And I'll
month.
put that in, put it in
February,
your
May,
motion.
August, and November.
And
Yes.
staying on the current, we write it in as meeting every third month.
Did you have something else?
Yeah, I'll admit I'm a little leery about getting that specific without everyone here. But that's,
We could, if we need to be fluid and change it, we can always change it at the next
Sure.
meeting. So I think we just set the precedent now, and if something needs to happen, so. So that would put our next date, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
uh,
One opposed, motion carries.
Okay. So the next meeting is when?
27th of May.
When's Memorial Day?
Fourth Tuesday.
The day after, probably.
What?
The day after Memorial Day.
Day after.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, day after. Okay, so we need to put in May 27th, Whitewater Joint Power Board. Oh, come on, Spanish. I'm teaching myself Spanish, so part of that is I type and try to type and then my keyboard changes on me.
Martes, mayo, día 27.
It's,
Okay.
We should hold that meeting in Spanish.
You could,
Oh, okay, I'll sit out in the
don't they?
hall then.
Okay. And August 25th.
6th,
Oh, 6, right.
Tuesday.
August 26th.
And November 25th, which is
The Tuesday
2 days
before
before
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
What was that date?
The 25th.
25th, 2 days before Thanksgiving.
See? And the nice thing is if this doesn't work, we can always change it back.
Okay.
We got a quorum, so does it work for someone, maybe they need a different appointment. Wonder if it'll probably be fine, I hope, but.
Okay, I guess motion to adjourn. Anybody?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Ross to adjourn. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion, nay, motion carries.
Okay.